All right, welcome everyone to, I believe our first ever, at least matinee live stream of some Kentucky Derby discussion. On the HRN office and fellow fan Travis Stone definitely noticed sort of an uptick of the chatter surrounding the Derby well before the draft, which is great. And Travis has been the host of the Kentucky Derby morning work show the past 3 days, so he's going to have an even more intimate look at these horses as they've been on the track. But definitely some momentum already building for the Derby discussion. And of course, it won't all coalesce until next Saturday at about 7 p.m. when we actually see if our thoughts turn into winning wagers. But a lot of horses to go through and discussions to be had between now and then. Pleased to be joined by Travis Stone, the voice of the Kentucky Derby, and Mark Midland, the impresario of Horse Racing Nation. Thanks, guys.
How you doing?
Ready? Let's get to use impresario when you introduce Joe Christopher next week.
Oh, I'm on it. It will happen.
Well, we've talked separately, not all three together, about this year's Derby, and it's somewhat cliche, and always try to avoid those. But I do feel like, personally, for the first time, man, I'd probably personally have to go back to Classic Empire, which obviously didn't work out. But from a wagering standpoint, for me, this Derby, I'm more excited about how am I going to bet this race, and if I'm right, I'm going to get paid, to quote Joe Christopher, more so than in recent years. What do you think, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of work your way into the Derby, and you always have a couple of horses here or there you want to play. But if you are leaning on somebody, you're first going to get the opportunity to maybe fade a horse like Journalism, who figures to be a fairly strong favorite. If you don't like some of the second-tier contenders, there's plenty of options on the long shot side of things to dive in with too. So yeah, this is a great. Well, all derbies are good, right? There's no such thing as a bad derby, but there's a lot going on here. I think that has to be deciphered puzzle-wise. That makes this a little more compelling than maybe some recent years.
Mark, any thoughts on
I mean, this is a great derby.
Vibe?
It's a deep derby. There's a lot of directions to go in, and I agree. I think this is one of the most exciting wagering derbies in years.
I want to thank everyone for joining us, and that will be joining us. We do have the chat open, so the thought of doing this live and the way we are is, if there are any questions, can pop in and get to those. But in the meantime, we'll get to the field before we get to your questions, and just decided to go in points order. Come Saturday night, we'll know the post position order of the 20 in the gate, plus any also eligibles that might accumulate. And Mark, you said you had the PPs up, so I'll let you run down the order. I do not have it memorized, shame on me. But
and before we
Square number one?
Before we do that, yeah, he is. I wanted to show just how the Kentucky Derby Super Screener breaks out the pace. And the Super Screener does a tremendous job with this. And I think this is, to me, one of the reasons why this is such an exciting race is, in the points era, we have had a lot of derbies where there hasn't been that much pace. And here we've got, East Avenue, Susan Bull, American Promise, Built and Beza, maybe they're in or not, Rodriguez, Equos' potential. And so, and you've got a nice spread, right? You've got pace horses, pressers, off the pace horses, and then some closers and deep closers. And I thought this is just a kind of a great way to look at the race as we're, a little bit more than a week out.
Was this made when Owen Almighty was still targeting the Pat Day?
Okay. Yeah, so it's a tad outdated. There's an early version. River Thames is in there. So you've got Owen Almighty as well. So, regardless of one horse or even two, I think at this point, because we've seen a lot of last-minute scratches and adjustments the last few derbies, I think there's a high probability there's a really fair pace here.
Yeah, definitely no disagreement there. Imagine it's going to be a hot topic, not only going into the race, but also after, in terms of assessing trips and who got fair or unfair chances. Pace is going to be a part of that discussion now and later, in my mind. And one of the things that's interesting to me is it's not just, okay, who's on the lead, who's a deep closer. The two of the three horses I like best on a win end Journalism and Sovereignty. I don't, which this one has Sovereignty as a deep closer. I expect him to be in front of the other horses in that categorization. But I do think Journalism has a chance to get the jump on him, which may or may not be the difference. It was in the Florida Derby, so.
I think you have to entertain the idea that everybody else sees this too, and that maybe only Rodriguez and American Promise end up on the lead first time by the stands. I think Rodriguez has only one way to go. I think Bafford's been fairly clear about that. So has Mike Smith, and they're taking the blinkers off Citizen Bull. So I don't think he's going. And going is relative. I mean, like truly intent on making the lead. They're going to get position. They're going to sit, second or third, fourth or fifth. They're not going to allow themselves to drop back to eighth. But yeah, I just don't know if I see 4 across the track early anymore. I've convinced myself it's going to go down to just Rodriguez and maybe American Promise and even East Avenue. I think East Avenue might try and rate. I know people have sort of convinced themselves he's this need the lead horse. It didn't work last time, and I think they still have some confidence in him. So maybe he rates too.
Well, and depending on how fast Rodriguez goes, it might be physically impossible for there to be 4 across the track if he's just quickest. Like no one else. I mean, anyone can go 4, half a mile as quick as you want, but at some point, maybe the others behind hit the brakes. But part of the compelling story for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Travis would make a good point. I mean, with 2 Baffords, they're unlikely to send both, and some of these different options. What do you all think about East Avenue and Sovereignty? Obviously, both being Godolphin. Is there some chance to just say, well, heck, let's just send East Avenue? Maybe it's his best chance to be on the lead. Maybe not. We're not 100% sure. We haven't figured this horse out completely. But if the pace heats up, it does help Sovereignty.
I doubt that there's a conference call where Mott and Walsh get on the phone with, the Godolphin brass, and they start to map out a strategy to sacrifice one or the other. My opinion is, I don't think Sovereignty needs it. I think there's enough pace in here, and I think he's good enough to overcome even a bit of a softer pace versus a lightning pace, if you will. I think the bigger question with East Avenue is, like I said before, do they truly send him? I don't think he's fast enough. And Mike Smith, by the way, has a long history of setting some suicidal paces in the Derby. Remember, Palace Malice was out there winging it. Danzig Candy from that far outside post a few years back. So I just think Rodriguez is going, and East and Citizen Bull and some of these types of horses are going to be forced to stalk, and they'll just find out if they're good enough. Okay.
And just want to remind everybody that all that tons of great information is available in the Kentucky Derby Super Screener. Huge advantage. I mean, every year I play the Derby with it, and wouldn't think about playing the Derby without it.
And I always tell people, and this goes back to, working with other types of handicapping info, but especially with the screener, we all have an opinion on the Derby. You want to pick the winner for sure, but when you're looking to cash those 1,000, 4, 5, 6-figure type of scores that reliably happen in the Kentucky Derby, to me, getting that push from someone who's done the work with the data and the replays, et cetera, to make sure you get that horse in third or in second or juggle it the right way. And Mike does a great job with how he sort of presents his information to get you to make smart wagering decisions. It's the Derby. We can all pick a horse, but to me, the help in making sure you're making efficient exotic wagers is where I really love it. And
great stuff.
You bring up this, and we'll start with Burnham Square, but and I'll bring up the chat as the horses come up. But do have some questions about, say, Sovereignty and American Promise. So I do see them. Since we're going through the horses, people who asked specifically about them or have a point, I'm saving those and be sure to bring them up as we get to each horse.
All right. So Burnham Square. Who's a fan? Who's buying?
I'm buying. Why not?
I'm holding.
Yeah. What has this horse done wrong? And if you think about it, Ian Wilkes learned from Carl Nafsker that to get a horse ready for the Kentucky Derby, you got to get them into race shape. You got to get them experience. You got to get them battle tested. And that's exactly what he's done with Burnham Square. He's going to have to work out a trip. He's going to need some pace. I think you just have to know that going in. I do believe Brian is worth a length, maybe 2, arguably 3 lengths or so in a race like this. I would anticipate them, and I know Ed and I have been made privy to, I don't want to say high-level strategy, but a little bit of a conversation that Burnham Square might not be a horse that wants to take a ton of dirt in his face, and so either way outside or right up along the rail to try and avoid some of that traffic and that dirt coming back would seem to be the plan. If he takes a little bit of a step forward and he gets the right sort of pace and setup, I mean, how many times have we seen these guys cut the corner in the Derby and pick up a handful of lengths on horses and outrun their odds, even from last year, or looking at Lee going back to when Always Dreaming won. So I think Burnham Square is really interesting also because he's probably going to be the 3rd or 4th most bet closer. So there's maybe a little bit inherent value there.
Travis,
Yeah, that makes
Travis
sense.
mentioned Ian, horseman who's easy to root for, and the Karl Nafzger routes, have some Derby success. This is sort of an old school, like actual Derby pattern that used to be you had to prepare this way or you had no chance. And, the 3 preps have gone out the window, having to start at 2. We've seen that go out since Justify and Mage. But here's a horse that does have foundation at 2. Interestingly enough, one of them is a high-level maiden claiming race, and then the 3 preps at 3. And I'm sure there was a sense of, does he need the Fountain of Youth, and maybe some second guessing when it didn't come back great. But this is a horse absolutely, if not going in the right direction, at least in the bluegrass was in the direction that could be competitive. So I said hold because it's kind of a punt for me. I'm not thrilled. He's not one of the ones for me, but I certainly like him better than most that'll be in his odds category.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between. Like, to me, he's a use, and like people like sometimes throw around like most likely board hitter or type of horse, and maybe just take the horse that they like to win and say, well, that's the most likely horse to hit the board. I would say of the horses outside of the top 3 or 4 that I like, I think this is one that's likely to be there in the sense that he's kind of always fighting. He's coming on at the end. You can look at right there at this PPs. If he's not winning, he likes to be close. He's never really been beaten by much. So I think this is a horse that you want to use, especially maybe in 3rd in the trifecta, maybe touching 2nd under your top choices. And just want to know from a sire standpoint, this would be Liam's Map first Derby starter.
All right. Yeah.
So
really going back, I would say to Smarty Jones, who's by elusive quality. And then Big Brown was a boundary. It does seem like milers are fine in the Derby, whereas it used to be you really wanted that stamina influence. So, Liam's Map, miler, Scat Daddy was sire Justify, so no real issue there. But, just black and white, this pedigree, I have no issue with it in the Derby.
Yeah.
Right.
Enter Sandman.
Okay.
Oh, I'm already tired of hearing that.
Yeah, just
I've heard it 20 times today already. I think Ed knows that. That's why he did that.
That's correct. I didn't know it was 20 times today, but you mentioned it.
Oh, yeah. I made a joke on the work show. We're going to have a jar. We have to put $1 in every time you say it. And then if I say it in the call, I'm going to take the jar.
That's why Metallica sent that stuff to the Cassie barn, though. Those royalty checks, when they start coming, they'll pay for those T-shirts in a minute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll start us off on Sandman. And I think he's a really nice horse. He's a closer that's going to keep running. So I think he does have potential hitting the board here. But my issue with Sandman and really most of the Arkansas horses is there was so much pace in these races. I feel like, Sandman's basically, we've seen his best. He got the dream setup in the Arkansas Derby, huge pace that fell apart. He ran past the other closers. I just don't know that he can get even a better setup in the Derby. So from that standpoint, I just think makes a tough bet wagering wise. Maybe third, especially, if my top choices run 1-2, I want to have that. But I don't know. What do you guys think on Sandman?
Well, my issue with if my top choices run 1-2, I don't want to have Sandman because I'll probably lose money on the trifecta because I like two other obvious horses. So for me, he's a total fade. Like maybe when we get to Chunk of Gold, talk about him. Maybe with him, I wouldn't want to get beat by Sandman, especially the similar styles, but I mean, you said it, Mark. Everything went his way in the Arkansas Derby, and yeah, he figures to get a similar trip here. But the other horses who are going to be closing with him, I think, are better than Publisher and Coal Battle. And you're taking the second choice. I think will be the second choice, if not the third. In that situation, just isn't for me. So certainly recognize he can win this race, but to me, he's the underlay of the field.
I'm starting to wonder. A lot of what I would call sharp friends are against Sandman, and like how sharp is this Derby crowd? That's kind of a loose statement. We know
exit Sandman.
Exit Sandman. It's one of the more recreational pools of the year. So, but at the same time, that allows for horses like Sandman and My Boy Jack to take real money. For all the reasons said above, I'm on board with you guys. The other thing I'll add to it is if you go back and watch his replays, first off, he was 0 for 3 at Churchill. He does not look like a horse that wants to take real dirt in his face. And I legitimately wonder about these Tappets in a race like the Derby. They've been successful in the Belmont because you're allowed, in the conventional Belmont, you're allowed to kind of get into stride and settle down, and the jockey can stay out of your mouth a bit. But in the Derby, you have to be able to make some moves and react to things and adjust. And it just doesn't seem like the Tappets totally respond to that. So would I be surprised if he wins? No, he's obviously very talented. He's seasoned and he's developing, but I just think he's an underlay come post time.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Tappet stuff. So I've got Tappet in the Derby stats here. 14 previous starters by Tappet. The best result is 2 third-place finishes by Tacitus and Essential Quality. 6 of his 14 starters were somewhat well-regarded, going off of 15-1 or less. So Essential Quality was 3rd at 2-1. Tappet Trice was 7th at 4-1. Tacitus was 3rd at 5-1. Frosted was 4th at 10-1. Mohamed was 4th at 11-1, and Hansen was 9th at 13-1. So he just hasn't really broken through. His Derby starters, if you rank them by odds, they were 7.1 in the field, and they finished 7.7. So Tappet did not move them forward in the Derby.
I mean, if you were to wake up Sunday morning and Sandman finished a good 6th, 7th, or 8th, coming with a bit of a run, would you be totally surprised? I think that's very plausible.
Oh no, I think that's, to me, like he should make a good run for 3rd through 8th. And the question is, which is it? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
But if the pace is super hot like it was in his preps, I think he could certainly hit the board or hit the super. But I agree. Probably a run for 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
I'll have another to pick Hansen, so that's definitely a sore rendition for me.
It happens. All right, journalism.
I'll go. I think he's just by far the horse to beat. I think he's done very little wrong. I think he looks like a beast. I love the way he responded to the trouble last time in the Santa Anita Derby. I like the fact he had a little bit of regression off that sharp San Felipe, and gives him an opportunity to maybe bounce back with a forward move in here. And I also, Michael McCarthy is a quiet, reserved trainer. He doesn't say a lot. And his interview that we did on the work show today, he was glowing. He feels very optimistic, very confident. I think the only thing that stands in journalism's way would be just an unfortunate trip or an unfortunate post, which are considerations when you factor in he's going to be probably 5-2 or 3-1. But I can't envision betting this race and not somehow using him. I think he's good.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little discouraged that the Santa Anita Derby went backward from the lifetime top in the San Felipe as his best race, but that was the best prep race period, not just journalism's best race. And the other thing, having seen the Santa Anita Derby back a few times, panel discussions, etc. I mean, he was just absolutely race ridden to be buried in that race. And in a 5-horse field, that takes some effort. You have to consciously know what your goal is with pinning him on the rail. And he still overcame that. And to me, there's enough chatter about Baeza's quality that running down that horse in that situation, to me, is a positive. And I'm not going to get discouraged by the big step back. I had him at 3-1 on my morning line. What I think the odds might be 5-2 is certainly in the realm of possibility based on the positive buzz upon his arrival in Louisville. I can't get past him, so he is my top pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I think he's definitely a very serious contender at this point. He's probably one of my top 2. I do have a little concern about that 108 number sort of being a really big number early in the prep season, and then having him decline a little bit. I mean, I hear you, Travis. If he comes back to the 108, that's going to pretty much win this race, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it does, to me, that's about the only thing that opens the door a little bit. There's not that many horses that peak that early that did well in the Derby. But I agree. I mean, McCarthy knows what he's doing. He's a great trainer. He's had big horses in big spots before, and the fact that he's quietly confident is great. Some Sawyer stats on Curlin. So he's had 9 previous starters in the Derby, 2 seconds, Exaggerator, and Good Magic. 4 of his 9 starters went off at 10-1 or less. Exaggerator was second at 5-1. Irish Warcry was 10th at 9-2. Good Magic was second at 9-1, and Known Agenda was 8th at 9-1. So the Curlins have done all right. They averaged 8th in odds rank and finished 7th on average. So they've moved a little bit forward. So knocking on the door.
All right.
All right, who's the Rodriguez fan?
I'm a fan.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't. I'm back being a fan. I wasn't in the Wood Memorial, and 7-2 ended up being more than square in retrospect. But both Travis and I were a little on this horse after the maiden race, and in various discussions in the winter, thought this one would be the one to maybe move forward for Bob past Citizen Bull, and it did finally happen without my money, unfortunately. But we've all seen the Lewis and San Felipe, and there was at no point in the first half of those races where it looked like he was ridden with any purpose where the goal was to win the race. Now, what the goal was would go a long way in helping me determine how much I'm going to include him and with who, because if Bob just thought he needed some more bottom before they really pushed him to make the lead, or was it, hey, it's someone else's turn today? Who knows? But those 2 races were not indicative of what we saw in the Wood Memorial. So at 10 or 12-1, I think he is a fair price. And, when you think about how this race could play out, I very much could see him gate to wire and journalism's a hard luck second, or I could see journalism running him down as he did Baeza in the Santa Anita Derby. But when I'm playing around with, okay, how do I think this race plays out? What does that mean for the final order? Those 2 are related in my mind, and I'm not going to be afraid to look at the Exacta Will Pays and maybe punch a big number, because I think they can be in the top 2 mixed together.
I could also see they turned for home and he went a little bit too fast and kind of gives way at about the 8th pole, opening the door up for a couple of other closers to pick up some pieces.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Ed said everything that I agree with. I don't know if it was necessarily the best trip for him in the Lewis and San Felipe. Well, actually, I do know he didn't win. But the Wood Memorial was, I thought, a really nice effort. And I get it that it's Aqueduct and it's a quick run to the first turn, and he had the inside post, but he was finishing. And I think Grande is a nice horse that ran second to him. So I think there's a little bit of decent form there. Captain Cook's no slouch, Sand Devil's no slouch. So it was not a grade 5 field, if you will. And I just have this feeling that they might, meaning the other horses and jockeys, might disrespect the early speed in this race, and he might get away with something. He might not have to go 45-2 to get there. And, the more you get into the 46s, the more dangerous he becomes. And maybe that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is really interesting. I mean, I guess my take on this horse was he got to the lead really easily at Aqueduct. It was from the inside post, and there wasn't really a lot of other speed on the inside. And so I just felt like he didn't really work that hard to do it. So I just don't know how true of an effort, that is. But, we've seen from Bob, these horses will move forward in the Derby. So I think you all make some good points. I mean, if he does get clear, by all means, I think this is a horse that can hang on for a piece, maybe even a big piece. But, as talented as some of this field is this year and is some of the other speed that's in here, I just have a hard time getting excited. So if I use this horse, I'm going to do it defensively.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then Authentic, so it would be the Authentic's first Derby runner.
I understand he actually won the Derby, though.
He won a Derby.
He won
a Derby, but
he is the only September winner.
Only 1,500 people were there to witness it.
Yeah,
5,000.
A wise man said it was the moment we've waited all year for.
Very wise.
So, all right. How about Tistastic?
This wise man says underlay, even at, let's say he's 20-1. I just, it's funny to say it because I like the horse he beat a lot more in here, who's going to be a bigger price. But I just feel like the setup was there. The numbers are by no means great. He's just another closer in here where I think others have shown they're better.
Yeah, I mean, I get the underlay status with him. I just think this is a horse that can run all day. I like the way he's developed and progressed. I thought that was a nice breakthrough win for him, despite the fact he had a couple of earlier wins on turf. He could be there or he could be nowhere. I get both arguments. I guess price would be a component for me here because I do think he is one of those closers amongst a group that includes Sandman and Sovereignty and Final Gambit and those types, and he might be a little bit overlooked out of disrespect for the Louisiana Derby. If he's up on the board at 10-1, I don't think he's worth it. But this is something Joel's done before. He's able to sense paces with off-the-pace dirt horses, and Steve got robbed of a Derby when Epicenter got nailed by Rich Strike.
Mm-hmm.
Steve has a Derby to his name, and it feels like he actually has two fairly decent chances this year. I prefer this one a little bit more just because he's a little bit more battle-tested with better company. But I'm sort of not a buy or a sell, but a use, and probably use a little bit more on the top end than others.
I will say I've always felt like when it happens for Steve, Epicenter was as close as you can get, and he was the favorite. But I've always kind of felt like when it happens for Steve, it's not going to be with like some superstar chalk.
Yeah, I agree.
So his two this year kind of feel like the vibe I thought would get him the roses, but I can't pay the mortgage with vibes. So
yeah.
What do you think, Mark? Stunned him into silence.
He's entranced. We killed him. I hope everybody else watching shares our humor.
I mean, I only wish that there was a rare instance where I wish we were a little bigger in there. Well, we can take some questions while we wait for him to get back. Roxy Roller, no relation to Racing Roxy from Louisiana Downs, which opens Derby Day. The different jurisdictions, and this is always something, and I haven't thrown it into the data collective. But I have wondered, like, we talk about all these Derby trends and people mention field size. It'll come up with journalism, of course. But yeah, like, is there something to outrun? You've shown an ability to ship if you face full fields. One thing I looked at, and it actually bore some fruit, was, have you been favored? If the betting public ever thought you were the most likely winner of a race, and that did show that those types of horses outrun their odds as a collective. So, I mean, what do you think, Travis, about the show?
That's interesting. The whole concept, like wisdom of the crowd, if you will. If you have a horse that's taken action in prior races, there's something there that the general public as a whole at a macro level liked. So the crowd over the long run is unlikely to be wrong a significant amount of the time. So yeah, that makes some sense. In terms of shipping, I think every horse is different, and that's part of the reason why I'm bullish on journalism, because one day after shipping from California, and by the way, it's not an easy ship. He's got to go up to Indy, get on a van, ride 3 hours down to Louisville now.
Right.
With the way
not
shipping
like
is
getting to Oaklawn.
Yeah, it's much more difficult. For him to bounce out of that, walk onto the racetrack with ears moving about, and just have that stride, I think that counts for something, for sure.
All right. Well, he's back and moving.
We revived him.
Yeah.
No longer catatonic.
Exactly. Sorry about that. Should we move back to Tappan Street next, or?
We never heard what you thought of Tistastic. So if he's your pick, we at least want to know that.
Right. I'm similar to you guys. I think Travis was saying, he's a closer. He could be overlooked, so maybe, don't want to overlook him completely, maybe play him defensively. I do feel like the Louisiana Derby set up for him. I thought Joel gave a great ride. He was sitting in a perfect spot and kind of fell into his lap. I guess the one question I wanted to ask you guys is, why maybe this horse didn't do better in the Rebel, or, he had 2/3 the Jockey Club, the Southwest. At that point, he was winless on dirt. He runs 5th in the Rebel. I guess kudos to Steve for kind of having confidence with him and pursuing, keeping him on the dirt, because obviously this is a horse who was a stakes winner on the turf. And 2 for 2 on turf, and then he broke through in the Louisiana Derby. But I was curious if you've heard there's some reason for that.
I'll chime in a little bit. If you weave your way through his PPs, I think he is better than the paper indicates. For starters, he ran second to Sovereignty in the street sense. Yeah, he got beat 5 lengths, but obviously Tistastic was not the Tistastic we have today.
Right.
He ran a good 3rd in the Kentucky Jockey Club behind First Resort, who a little birdie told me that was the Godolphin horse everybody liked at Godolphin. It's unfortunate that he got hurt, because they apparently liked him quite a bit. And this is just what Steve does. He just allows them to get better and to develop. And I feel like sometimes our brains are conditioned to seeing cleaner, shorter profiles versus what we see here with Tistastic, or like what we see with Burnham Square. Horsemen allowing their horses to develop through racing. Steve has a long list of horses that have just gotten better with age, and I think this sort of fits that category. So I guess a lot of my pro Tistastic opinion is trusting Steve, letting this horse develop and doing the right things by him.
Right.
I have no idea what to make of it, but it's interesting that he ran this horse on 10 days rest as a 2-year-old on turf. And then after that, cashing $1 million purse, was right back at it a month and a half later. I see that as a positive for probably the horse's talent and long term. Again, it's not going to be a reason I play him here, but yeah, there's a lot of signals here that the barn likes this horse.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And then just it's how do you cut these closers we just talked about. So like Burnham Square, Tistastic, and Sandman, I kind of feel like Tistastic's a little bit lesser quality than Burnham Square, but maybe the similar horse. I think Burnham Square's done a little bit more, clearly with a couple wins in preps, and I think Sandman is dressed up a little more in the fact that he got some really big paces to run at and looked somewhat fantastic in the Arkansas Derby. But I don't know. How do you all split these three?
Price, maybe.
Yeah.
I hate to be kind of lame like that, but I probably would let price dictate terms there. I also think
especially Sandman, who's going to be
the
second
Tappet
choice.
thing. The Tappet thing for me is a big component of my opinion on Sandman. So, he can be right alongside. I mean, Tistastic, Sandman, Sovereignty, and Burnham Square could be 4 across the track. 20th, 19th, 18th, and 17th, and I just prefer the other 3 making moves as opposed to Sandman. To be my read there. Yeah.
John asked, Clips award-winning turf rider John Scheinman asked about the prep, which I put in the chat now since Tistastic did win the Louisiana Derby. I feel like it's sort of happenstance, guys. The Louisiana Derby is a final prep in the grand scheme of the Kentucky Derby is relatively new. When Funnyside won the Derby, the Louisiana Derby was, way back, well, not way back, but it was further back in his PPs. Florida Derby used to be a penultimate prep. And now we've just got to a point where there's this blanket of 100 points to the winner races. So there's fewer chances to go around in terms of, there's more chances to go around to be in a final prep, but then that makes it all the much harder for that prep to be represented by the winner since there's more of them. So I just see that as a numbers game. I do not throw horses in or out based on the name of the prep they were in.
Well, if it weren't for Rich Strike, Epicenter would have won the Derby out of the Louisiana Derby, and Zandon was right there out of the Bluegrass. So I think there's a little bit of variance there at play as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and Mark's mentioned this. We dive so deeply into statistics at HRN and enjoy it, and a lot of what sort of generates looking back is how many starts, how many wins. But really, a quality start has efficacy too, in my mind. So to your point, Travis, he didn't win, but Epicenter prepped rather well coming out of Louisiana. And Steve, who we've sung the praises of as this great horseman, says there's no better place to prep than the fairground. So if a guy like that's saying it, and believe me, Steve is not looking to blow smoke up any racetrack operator's rump. So if he says that, I'm taking it for what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long history of fairgrounds long shots doing well in the Derby. All right, so let's move on to Tappan Street.
Tappan Street.
Yeah.
Tappan Street. Yeah. It's the name of the street that Anthony Manganaro grew up on in Boston. The late former owner of Sienna Farm, who owned Tappan Street. I think this horse is really dangerous. For one reason in particular is that we've talked a lot about closers and we've talked a lot about speed, but we haven't mentioned many stalkers. And Tappan Street is going to be ahead of almost all the horses we talked about. He's ahead of Burnham Square, Tistastic, Sandman, Sovereignty. So he's going to get first run on them. He's developed nicely. I thought the Florida Derby was a much more professional performance from him, granted at a track that does favor more of his style than the runner-up. But I just think this horse is on the come and is a live contender. I don't know if the price is totally going to be there. He might dip into a little too short, but there's enough chatter on some of these where he still might be forgotten a touch and offer some value.
I think, I wouldn't say overlay just because I don't love him, but I have him right there with Burnham Square in terms of the horses who are going to be, somewhere between, say, 4th and 9th choice. I don't mind him at all. I'll need to be right in some other position if he runs well, but I think you said it, Trey. We've talked so much about the extremities, the pace and the closers, but there is that mid pack, which I think Tappan Street and Journalism both check that box, where Tapan Street maybe even gets first run on journalism, depending on post, and that could be an advantage because, from what Brad said, which most trainers do, like distance isn't a concern. I know some aren't a big believer in into mischief at a mile and a quarter, but he has enough bona fides to me that I can't let that stop me from using a horse like this with the others I like.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really compelling to me about this horse is I don't know that we've seen his best.
Yeah.
So, he's very lightly raced. And I think in the Florida Derby, he, the 9-post isn't great, but he was inside of Sovereignty. He kind of got the jump on Sovereignty. The pace wasn't that hot. And I think Sovereignty got the talent to reverse that. But I also want to be cognizant of this. We probably haven't seen his ceiling here. And, I wouldn't think Brad Cox would have had this horse topping out in the Florida Derby. So if they both improve, this horse that could figure a long way. So I agree. He's going to be in a potentially good spot turning for home, depending pace wise. He's going to get first run on these other horses. And, he's a horse I'll probably want to consider as high as second. I'm probably not going to use him in the win spot a whole lot. Into Mischief. So 13 previous starters, 2 Derby winners, but never finishing first in May. Authentic was 1 Derby winner and Mandaloon was the other. He's had 4 horses go off at single digit odds. Golden Sense was 7-1, finished 17th. Audible 7-1, ran 3rd, and then Authentic was 8-1, won, and then Highly Motivated was 10-1 and finished 9th. So kind of mixed results on the Into Mischiefs. Not so much, how much stock we put in Authentic and Mandaloon.
Yeah.
Authentic was authentic indeed.
That he was.
It's not my line. Don't give me a hard time.
You're repeating that, though.
I am. It was germane, though.
All right, Sovereignty. Another Into Mischief. I'll go ahead, and since I just was talking about him, and I do think he's got the talent to turn the tables on Tapan Street. This is a horse that he's probably gonna get pounded right at the windows. And he won at Churchill Downs. He won going 2 turns. Sort of had the plan, since the fall to come here. He's had his 2 preps. Talked to Bill Mott the other morning. He seems really confident. And, you have to think that, they had the points after the Fountain of Youth, and they're just trying to get him to Churchill Downs and then really tighten him up here for a big run. So I like him a lot. He's, got to be one of my top 2 choices.
Yeah, I'm not a DRF guy generally. I'm actually kind of stark that on the buyer scale, these numbers don't match up. That is not the case. And Rag is in. Anyone else has access to other stuff, chime in. But I wouldn't be discouraged even by the buyer stuff for a lot of what you talked about, Mark, that, the plan was to get to May 3rd at peak performance. And that certainly seems to be the case here. The Florida Derby was post 10 out of 10. That, regardless of your run style, that's definitely not ideal there. And the Fountain of Youth, there was chatter about he needs a race and, people not wanting to read too much into whatever happened. I thought he looked good winning that one. So done nothing wrong. And the fact that Mott had this one in a grade 3 as a maiden, I think speaks volumes to what they thought they had last year. And nothing's happened this year to deter that. So he's one of the 3 for me in terms of who I think is among the more likely winners. And because of price, I expect him to be a heavy use. I can't be too heavy with journalism and Rodriguez because then I'm just using 3 of the top 5 choices. But in terms of my long shot, which we'll get to in a few here, if they both hit the number, I can't lose.
I think my one concern with Sovereignty is if you watch him on the mornings, on the workout show in the mornings, he's been fairly washed out each and every day since that breeze. might be something I would tune into over the next 7 days to see if that continues. Is that normal for him? What have you? Suboptimal. I mean, it's not like it's hot out in the morning right now, and this horse is getting quite washed out. But it also feels at the same time like he's just going to be a consistent, reliable, off the pace horse in a spot like this, and he's likely going to get enough pace to capitalize on it. He's done very little wrong, and it's really hard to knock him. But I am a little bit not concerned as much as just curious how he handles the mornings these next few days, because he even today, and there's a little bit of chatter roaming around, the horse circles, if you will, about how berserk he was this morning. He was quite washy. So something to watch, or at least consider and ponder as we work our way toward the race.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look out for it as we kind of head back there. The one thing that really stuck out to me was down at the Florida Derby, and just, watching those horses go by you and they did in the paddock. I mean, he just looked amazing.
Yeah.
And just want to see if he continues to look good, but that's interesting.
All those Godolphin breds, East Avenue, they all look so good. It's just such a good breeding program. They don't have, I think if they have a horse that doesn't look good, they get rid of it type thing, They'll sell it. Yeah. I mean, those big operations do that. They weed them out and they send them on down the road.
All right.
Speaking of sending a horse down the road,
they sell them. Like, there's some sales overseas that a lot of the Coolmore horses, when they weed out their yearlings and stuff, they put them in the sale, and
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just meant I'm sending Final Gambit down the road.
Oh, I'm with you. This horse is Wise Guy, right? He's Wise Guy, 100% Wise Guy horse.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe Publisher, depending on what happens, with the works again. But I've talked plenty about this horse in other venues, so I've been saving this comment for this one. Looking at the buyers really puts it in focus. I for the life of me cannot understand, and I'm most active on social media of us three, but watching people day in, day out, week in, week out, obsessing over the numbers after every race and who got what and good or bad, and then turning the page to this horse, seeing a 90 buyer on a different surface in his final prep and being all excited to play this horse as the Wise Guy in the Kentucky Derby, when he is going to have to run the race of his life on a new surface against horses who I absolutely think are better than he is. I just don't understand what there is to like about this horse at 20-1. I'm out.
Not to mention the Ruby was a complete and total collapse. I mean, the race completely fell apart. He circled the field. The runner-up came from the back as well. The speeds wilted to 7th or worse. It was just a huge setup.
Yeah, the horse who looked like he was running off took a bad step, and he was done.
Mm-hmm.
He's no Tiz the Bomb.
No, who is?
Yeah, I don't know. Some sire stats on Not This Time. Only 2 Derby starters. So Epicenter, 4-1 favorite, ran second, and Simplification the same year, 35-1, finished 4th.
He ran well that year. Yeah.
So I mean, Not This Time should take to the dirt route just as well, if not better, than a synthetic route. I guess people always like the just giant close, right? The just a big close and running by horses. I agree there's a setup there, and I agree there's a lot of gambling here where the horse is switching surface and he has to improve numbers. All that being said, I don't want to throw him out yet of my superfecta. We've seen year after year so many closers just kind of chunk up for 4th, even more than 3rd. So I'm gonna do some replay watching on this one. I'm not out on him 100% yet.
Yeah, I mean, 3rd and 4th and 5th in the Derby is in many ways a grab bag anyway, right? I mean,
right. And I think you want a closer for a grab bag like that. And but I agree, like I don't see the excitement for him as a Wise Guy horse to win this thing or hit the exacta by any.
My former colleague at Thoroughbred Times, Pete Dank, now sales editor at Blood Horse, he had a term called scenario bets. And, depending on where my bankroll is at the time and, what I think I need to do to make a score. I could see where you would just say, okay, who are the if this race completely falls apart, who are the 20-1 plus closers? You can box them up, and a dollar exacta in the Derby with 231 horses is, for the way I bet would get me out for the day. So, that's something that would be the only way I would use this horse, is just kind of saying, okay, if it falls apart. So even in that scenario, I'm not using Sandman because he's definitely going to be too short. But if you really think there's a pace collapse, I guess I wouldn't want to get beat with other pace collapses at a price. But that's it.
Yeah.
All right. And what odds do you see him going off of? Like, just talking about that, it's like, yeah, I would rather use Tistastic or Burnham Square versus.
I think it'd be 25-1.
Gambit will be 25.
What do you think, Travis?
I think shorter. I think 15-20.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's a real wise guy.
Wow.
I mean, we did that event last night, Ed. You heard the oohs and the ahs when that
That's
rolled down the center of Turfway.
Well, then what price does Tistastic go off at?
Below that, 12-15.
Okay.
Yeah, 15, I think. People like ones. I mean, that I say that every year, but this is one of the few where people are handicapping off the program and betting serious money. So,
all right. Well, then are they gonna stay away from Coal Battle? He had a bunch of ones and a 3x7.
well, I'm guessing they'll have about 4 hours of coverage of Coal Battle on NBC. So, whether that moves the dial in the wagering pool, I don't know. But I think, we talked about a few in here going in the right direction for Derby. I feel like this one's going in the wrong direction. I know we heard the excuse about the workouts, maybe a little short. Made a big move in the Arkansas Derby. I don't necessarily agree that it was too soon. I thought he was ridden to win and take the race then. And if he were a real Derby horse in my mind, with the trip he got, that's a race you win. And he wasn't even a match for Publisher. For Publisher for second, and actually ended up pretty close to Cornucopian, who somehow managed fourth in that race, which is pretty damning for the horses behind him. So overall, top to bottom, I'm selling the Arkansas Derby. As we already know, I don't like Sandman, and Coal Battle I think is going to take some money off the story, and I don't have him anywhere.
He probably finishes nowhere, but I do think he gets a little bit of a pass for the Arkansas Derby because, in my opinion, I thought he moved a little soon and was a little close to the pace. I like the workout he had here the other day. It sort of signaled a return to form for him. And the other thing with Coal Battle is you kind of equate with him to be, you think of him being more of a closer type. He actually has real gate speed, and not for nothing. That's going to allow them to get position early in the race. And so maybe when you add those factors up, perhaps he offers a little bit of value, maybe as an underneath candidate, a horse to include. Like if you're building a big super, do you really want to lose if Coal Battle runs third and your key long shot runs fourth with your top picks first and second? I probably would not want to. I think there was enough there to at least give it a little. You could have
just stopped it. Do you really want to lose?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's not me rooting with my heart. I think this is just such an awesome story. Lonnie Briley just
it is.
But I think there's enough there in the Arkansas Derby to warrant one more chance for him to maybe hit the board. I really have a hard time seeing him winning. I don't see the path for him to win, but he could maybe stick down inside and outrun his odds and sneak into third, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would. I guess I would sort of juxtapose this horse with. I'm gonna mess it up again. Tapan Street. Here's a horse. Coal Battle won 4 in a row. Yeah, maybe moved a little too soon in Arkansas. But this is a horse that's kind of been running consistently since October. I don't know that we can really expect him to improve anymore. And maybe he's not improving. Now, if the workouts, these last couple really turn it around, I'll be a little more intrigued and following the camp. You said, Travis, of like not losing if I have the rest of the bet right. But, you have Japan Street's pretty similar, but he's had 3 starts and probably on the way up. So I would
and faster.
Yeah, maybe. So just a thought, and Cole Front first Derby starter for the sire. All right, Ed, is Chunk of Gold gonna make us a chunk of gold?
Yeah,
in a
platinum.
week and a half?
Gold to platinum. Hopefully it's not pyrite. And Mark, I guess you should start because you're really the one that hit me to value in that Louisiana Derby with kind of the tactics they took to be a little closer to the pace, which I don't mind at all because going into that race, it looked like John Hancock could be anything, and we knew he was going to be on the lead, so they wanted to stay in touch with him. As it turned out, he wasn't the Bears. He wasn't what we thought they were. So, maybe in hindsight they take back again, but that was a good race.
Yeah, the thing that got me excited about this horse was, literally watching the Louisiana Derby. It was just a really fast pace. It looked like it was going to be a fast pace on paper. And when you start watching just in the beginning of the Louisiana Derby, the field really spreads out. And this horse is sort of, just like it says there on the PP line, 5th by 3. So he's at the back of this first pack of 4 horses that are really going pretty hard. And then there's a big gap. And I think Tistastic is more like, got I don't say dream trip, but open air in front of him. And he's maybe leading of the backpack. And so all the horses, I don't have the chart right in front of me, but of the horses that were in that first pack of 5, I think most of them finished well out of it. Tistastic came from way back, I think from 9th. Instant Replay that ran 3rd came from far back as well. And so to me, this horse is just against the flow. He was kind of against the flow in the Risen Star, and the Risen Star was the opposite. Magnitude goes wire to wire, and Built was close, and he comes from 8th by 7. Even though he only finished 2nd by 9, he was really the only horse in the Risen Star that moved up spots. So he's kind of been against the flow twice. I think they do have options with him. I agree with you that they'll probably take him back. I would think a little bit more in here. And I just think there's a lot to like about this horse as a little long shot play. And I guess I'll use him in all, pretty much every spot. Mostly targeting for 2nd and 3rd and 4th, and play him, maybe small win bet.
I think there's a reasonable argument he ran just as well as Tistastic in the Louisiana Derby.
I think he ran better.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy for a horse they paid $2,500 for.
Right.
Yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah, less than the sire price.
Yeah. I agree with you on both reads, the Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby. He was supposed to work, I think, tomorrow at Turfway. He's going to ship down here, so we'll see how he does when he gets to Churchill. But that probably is a positive too. Ethan West, who's sort of an upstart trainer, doesn't really have to go through the Derby ringer right off the rip. He can allows him to train his horse in their own turf for a bit of time. And I do think he was put into the race a little bit last time with a change of tactics, and if they revert back to what they did in the Risen Star, he is certainly live underneath. He's probably live for everything, but he'll be a huge price. I think he's very much so a great live long shot.
And Ed, anything else?
Nah, that covers it. Just from a wagering standpoint, I'm excited because I do feel like my on top selections are pretty pedestrian. It's going to be the 1st, 3rd, and 5th choices. But if Chunk of Gold gets in there, that doesn't matter. So I feel like I'm excited to have an opinion about how to hook up those chalky selections with a legitimate long shot. I'm excited about.
Well, and we saw last year though in a 20 horse field. Sierra Leone was one of the favorites. Forever Young was one of the favorites. Mystic Dan was was he 20 to 1, 18 to 1? You know, so
Yeah,
it just takes
18.
one price. And if you can get that correct, you're going to get paid. And if this horse is 40, 50 to 1, look out.
Yeah. Joe says the same thing.
All right. Citizen Bowl.
Y'all go.
All right.
What do you got?
You'll go? I thought you're going.
No, I said y'all go.
Oh, y'all go. I'm sorry. I got nothing. Grady, that was quite a win streak there. 2 grade ones, champion, came back at 3. The numbers were never, I mean, I would say, depending on what you look at, were never good, let alone great. And he just has not moved forward. The development isn't there. So maybe we get it. After that 7 furlong work, blinkers coming off. I mean, there's some signals that Bob's turning the screws to get a lifetime best, but it would have to be a lifetime best by many to be what I consider, a winning effort. And I guess he's a long shot now, off that last, but it's still Bob. It's still the champion. It's a cool name. I think he's an underlay even at 30 to 1. And tossing Bob completely, even though I'm not tossing the stablemate, but I think there's that's not nothing. So that's what I'm going to do. Did
we lose Ed?
Maybe for a second. I thought I was.
Oh no, Ed. Oh, there he is.
There he is. He's popping around.
It was the Tiztastic catatonic. I don't know what you heard. I'm not using Citizen Bowl. That's all you need to know.
We heard all that. Yeah, we lost you for a second.
You know what the unfortunate thing here is that if this was like the Santa Anita Derby, in other words, his race coming into the Kentucky Derby was the Robert Lewis. This horse is one of the favorites and it's taken a ton of money. And now, because he finished 4th and was soundly beaten in the Santa Anita Derby, his price just naturally drifts up. I think all of his wins are dressed up. I mean, he beat Getaway Car, who would not be competitive in the Kentucky Derby. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his chief rival, went to his face coming out of the gate, and it's not like that race has really held up form-wise. Chance of Patrick was in there. He's not much of a 2-turn horse. And then the Robert Lewis, we've talked a little bit about that. Rodriguez kind of had a passive trip in there. So it's like this is just dressed up through and through. And it's just kind of a shame that the Santa Anita Derby had to happen on paper in terms of betting the Derby.
You mean you could just go tee off against this horse if he was?
Oh man, if I was betting on this race and that the Robert Lewis was his final prep and he had this pretty profile and all the buzz around Bob and all that, yeah, he would be a great bet against.
Huge.
He was. Yeah, I mean, he finished 4th, beaten 9 in the Santa Anita Derby, right?
Yeah. But you got to think there's a lot of public sentiment for picking one of the Bafferts, and we just had somebody in the chat. One of the first comments we got is which one of the Bafferts, So I don't know. I think they're going to both take money, and I agree completely, Travis. I mean, remember the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and it was out there, and Mike Shuddy with the Super Screener had a great pick. He picked Citizen Bull on top, and he broke out of the gate, and there was nobody pressing him. He just walked to the lead. And Gaming was right with them. They went 1-2 all the way around, and we cashed some great tickets at 15 to 1, but it was completely dressed up. I mean, so now, I mean, if you try to play games and take blinkers off and right behind Rodriguez and right behind these other horses, I mean, I get the logic, but good luck.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Owen Almighty.
He had a nice workout today. I got to admit, kind of woke me up a little bit. Wasn't expecting it. He looked good doing it, and he had a huge gallop out. This horse does have some talent. I don't like the mixed signals around going to the Pat Day Mile versus the Derby, and he's probably going to end up in the back half of the field almost regardless of what scenario they employ. But I will say the workout was a little bit of a eye opener for me today, and not necessarily just of what have you done for me lately. He looked good doing it, so maybe that's more about he should be in the Pat Day Mile for what it's worth, But yeah,
Yeah. Do they get cold feet? And I mean, do you feel like they're 50-50 between the races right now, or?
Oh no, he's in the
No.
Derby. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going Derby.
Okay.
I think he might be 50-50 on going to the lead. I think they might try and rate a little bit, kind of get cute that way. But I think he's definitely running in the Derby.
Okay. I mean, I don't like him at all. I mean, he's a nice horse, but it looks like a grade 2 horse to me. That he's going to run into more speed here. Same kind of deal. Like, are you going to rate him? Okay, fine, but his best races have been on the lead. The Tampa Bay Derby, he kind of broke on. I read Ortiz broke on the lead, and his brother didn't send the other speed, and he wired pretty easily. I mean, he's a nice horse, but I don't have any interest against these.
I'm nothing about his company lines, and I'm a speed as class guy. So if he was running lights out and the numbers came back good, it wouldn't be as big a deal. But Jonathan's Way in the 2-year-old race, he was nothing. John Hancock, Pastor, they've both disappointed. Chancellor McPatrick, Travis already mentioned him, more one-turn horse, and then the Bluegrass when the real running started. And he stuck around a lot longer than, thinking back to the race. I had to watch the replay to realize he was really in the thick of it with East Avenue well into the stretch, and then ended up 6th. So, yeah, but between the distance concerns, the trainer never wanting to go to this race, and the class, I just don't see it. I would say Built is my least likely winner, but Owen Almighty I would rank 19th.
Yeah.
All right. And Speightstown, that would be his first Derby starter. All right, East Avenue.
I've convinced myself of a story on this horse. For starters, he was well touted last summer. The steam of the steam. Brendan was very high on him, and he went off nearly even money. And then he comes right back and wins the Breeders' Futurity. I forgive the juvenile. He went right to his face, was never running that day, whatever. The race that everybody wants to basically knock him down on is the Risen Star, where he tried to sit second to Magnitude, and he just completely wilted. But I might counter that with that was his first meaningful start since October of the prior year. I don't think you can really give him much credit for what happened in the juvenile. So that was his first meaningful start. And yes, he quit. And yes, he wilted. Fine, whatever. Maybe he was dealing with an issue. Maybe there was something going on. Maybe they had to figure something out. Who knows? So then comes the Bluegrass. And so now, while he had a start in the Risen Star, it was not exactly a race where he was competitive to the end. So they're probably thinking, we need to get a good race into this horse. We got to get him fit. We got to step forward. We got to get him back on the right track. And so they gun him in the Bluegrass, which is effectively his first meaningful start, you could argue, all the way back to October. And he held tough, and he hung on to the very end. He cycled back to his top 2-year-old number, and now he's positioned to potentially take another step forward. I don't necessarily, and I could be wrong about this, and that's fine. I'm wrong a lot. I don't totally buy into the fact that this is just a need-to-lead type horse purely because he couldn't win the Risen Star. I think it'd be foolish if come Sunday morning you look up and journalism ran down East Avenue and you didn't have any tickets, despite the fact the most touted 2-year-old of the last 5 years ran second, And I think you can paint enough of an excuse picture to forgive some of those efforts in between. And I think the pattern is there. He could step forward in here. I don't know. Ed's going to say what I agree with. It might not be enough. He might need one more race to truly take that step forward that he needs. But I don't know. He could be 15 or 20 to 1, and that's kind of insane value for a horse that was 6 to 5 effectively in his first career start.
Yeah, the pattern's great. Like this is the quintessential. Like when they talk about developing 3-year-olds, you definitely want to see them get back to their best as a 2-year-old and then move forward from it. And this is sort of the typical way it's done. Unfortunately, the best is still a little out of touch with what others have already run. So that move forward, it would have to be a big one. But I think he'll run an indicative race of a horse who's moving forward. I just question, even at 20-1, my question's big enough that I can't quite get there as one of the upper echelon choices. But in terms of pace beyond Rodriguez, I would say I prefer him next of those who figure to be, in the top quarter, top fifth of the field going into that first turn. Just not quite sure it's enough.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I agree with the scenario you're painting, Travis, but I just think there's a lot of ifs in the sense like, I mean, does he need the lead? Maybe not, but he's run his best on the lead. If he does that in the Derby, he's going to probably be knocking heads with a bunch of other horses. If he rates behind them, now he's going to have to not only do something that he hasn't done before successfully, which is rate behind other horses and run the same figure, but he's actually going to have to improve upon that figure while there are better closers behind him. So for me, it's just like there's just a lot to ask. So like Ed said, at 20-1, I'm definitely out on him. I mean, if he was 40-1, I might touch him a little bit more, but I hear what you're saying. I will be kicking myself if he runs second as the best 2-year-old last year. And then Sirewise Medaglia d'Oro has only had 2 Derby starters, both in 2018. Enticed was 50-1 and ran 14th. And Bolt d'Oro was 8-1, 8.9-1, and he finished 12th. So, all right, now we get to the maiden.
Surprising, only 2. He's a good sire.
Yeah.
I should say my stats. I'm running stats from 2001 forward, so he's an old enough sire. It might be something before that.
He was in the
no.
02 Derby. So
Yeah.
I guess not.
Yeah. No.
All right, publisher, the maiden.
Yeah, a little wise guy whiff to him as well, especially a lot of chatter with him outworking allegedly the stablemate Tistastic. Sounds like maybe they're just 2 different style workhorses, which in part may have been why Steve put them together. But I don't. Another one I don't get, and it's like I hate to talk people off a horse who's going to be 20-1. Like that's a great price, but where's the beef? Another situation, everything going his way. He's within a length of the lead in the Arkansas Derby, and Sandman pulled away from him. Like, are we really turning the tables on that closer enough that he gets the job done? And, the Rebel and Southwest, they were, I wouldn't say they were even fine. They were whatever in back of the pack, but I don't get it on this one. This feels like, he'll probably, like, you wouldn't play him to be last. He's going to run at some point in the race and maybe be 8th or 9th, but I just don't see the talent is there to run a number that wins this race.
The ride Pratt put on him in the Arkansas Derby was just off the charts good too. So not only did he get this phenomenal setup, I mean, if you go back and watch the replay and just focus on him, every move Flavian made was the right move for a horse trying to come from 11 to 16 lengths out of it. And it's hard to envision they get another sort of seas parting type trip, especially when you consider there's about 5 other closers in the race that are probably better already on paper. So, yeah, he feels like an underlay. He really does, even as a maiden, as crazy as that is.
But isn't he going to be 50-1?
No.
Really? All right.
Now you're making me wonder. I mean, maybe 20
He
to
won't be
30.
50-1.
No, he's not going to be 50-1.
Who's going to be 50-1,
Ed? Flying Mohawk and Built.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree with what's been said about him. I think the Southwest, he did have a horrendous trip. The only thing I would say about Publisher is, yeah, he's another closer, but if you look at Tistastic and you look at Sandman, and maybe he had a little bit better trip than Sandman in Arkansas, but he's pretty close to those. So if you start getting into a ticket where you're going to spread with a lot of closers, I don't think he's much different than Tistastic, probably a length or 2, like he finished behind Sandman. But as we've seen in the Derby, trips can get goofy and whatnot. So I'll probably use them in third and fourth, but not much. Hopefully the price is big enough that I won't need them much.
Irad's on him too, right? Irad Ortiz?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Oh, he'll take real money.
You can't. I mean, some of them got to be 40 to 1. Especially journalism being such a strong favorite. But we'll see. Well, speaking of bombs, I mean, American Promise, right? But coming off a 7-link win and Dwayne Lucas, obviously can't be too
track record as well.
Yeah. Do they run the 1.8 on the dirt at Colonial a lot?
It was the first ever stakes at 1.8 on the dirt.
Okay. Well, he set the bar for everyone else.
He will. Isn't he on the pace? He's on the engine a bit. Isn't that the Lucas way? Give your owners a thrill.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it? I mean, my take on this horse, and Ed, you were out there, but it's a 1-turn 1.8, right? And it seemed like they kind of ran the race like a 1-turn mile type of race. They got him out, just like the chart, form says he was second by, a little bit, but he was kind of wide to take him outside of the other speed, and they just kind of let him go on a high cruise control, and then he didn't stop. And which is, I think, incredibly smart of them and good for them. And they won the race. And he's a nice horse, but I think that's like night and day what the Kentucky Derby is. So yeah, I think he's probably not fast enough to get to the lead if he wanted to. Whatever he did last time, rating out in the middle of the track and cruise control isn't going to work. So he's either going to have to go harder for the lead or take dirt behind horses. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, not for me. Travis has mentioned it with some others. It's like, what's the path? It's hard to see this one even on the board.
So interesting. He will be. I think we got a couple Justifies this year, but Justifies had 3 Derby starters in 2023. Verifying 14 to 1, finished 16th, and then last year Just Steel. 21 to 1, finished 17th, and Just a Touch 11 to 1, finished 20th. So 3 starters, never better than 16th for Justify.
Yeah.
All right. Now it gets interesting.
Yes.
That's what they're here for.
I think Luxor Cafe is a nice horse. If you watch his replay, he made a meaningful move while wide. If you go back and watch that November replay where he and Admire Daytona threw it down, they were 12 lengths ahead of the others. Kind of a good way to gauge the two of them together. I've always felt, and I think I'm not speaking out of turn, the Japanese are going to win the Kentucky Derby one day. And a lot like Ed said with Asmussen, it's probably going to be the horse that we didn't totally expect. It's not going to be one of the bigger favorites. And it feels like this could be a sneaky Japanese contender. He's got enough talent to kind of make some noise. It's really an American breeding. The dam was one that Mrs. Revere at Churchill. And the horse does have turfy looking action, but has been successful on dirt. So I don't want to take that too strongly. In my opinion, just another contender that at the end of Saturday is probably 10th. And that's that. But man, I don't know. He could be 15 or 20 to 1, and I hate to say this about a lot of them. You'd hate to miss out on a superfecta because he snuck in there, and you just wanted to be clever by not using him for whatever reason,
Yeah, I wouldn't let him beat me in that case. And John brings up a good point. Watching the race, he was wide, and I mean, just exploded. The counterpoint to that, Doug Salvatore. An astute observer of replays and really digs in when he digs in, dug into some of the horses behind Luxor Cafe. And it's kind of like, well, when you're 3 to 10 and you think you have a Derby horse, sounds like the level of the horses he beat, he should have won like he did. So, that's maybe a step back if you're getting too excited, but he's going to be 15 or 20 to 1. and he would be one of those I do not want to let beat me if I'm right, even in one of the other spots. So certainly dangerous, like him better than his compatriot, but not one of the ones for me, but in the mix.
Yeah, for me, I mean, he's top 3 right now. I've watched a couple of his replays. They're just so impressive. And like John said, he's wide. He's obliterating the competition. Want to take in, did he get to the track yesterday? I think, or is he
today? He got here yesterday. He was out there today.
Yeah. So I want to, kind of see how he looks on the track.
You got a good view of the starting gate.
Yeah, he was back there with it behind the wall.
Oh, right. Well, after we saw what Forever Young did, not only in the Derby but the rest of the season, I just think we've got to, as everyone is, take the Japanese horses more and more seriously. And I think there's a lot to like about this horse, and they're coming in confidently with him, and he's a top 3 play for me.
It's an interesting question that just popped in. I don't know if you see it, Ed, but the surface over there, the kickback in Japan, it is, if you watch their replays, it is different. It, I don't know, say it more sandy-ish looking, I don't know what the material is.
Sandy.
It does have a different look to it. They look like they labor a little bit more or have to work harder over it.
It's good for the bottom.
Yeah, and the top.
Well, they have those shields too, the jocks wear, right?
Yeah, it's like they're going into battle.
Yeah,
maybe it is like real kickback. I mean, when you watch the replay, there's a lot of debris in the air, for what it's worth, and the way those fields gap out, a lot of times it's a sign of it. Yeah,
and you'd see in the form has a designation RH being right-handed, so clockwise for most of Luxor Cafe's races, including that last one. I'll use this to segue into Admire Daytona. Last year, Forever Young ran great and certainly caught our eye and kept running well. But I think back to T.O. Password, who I just thought, man, what is this horse doing here? 3rd career start, shipping from Japan. It's like a 2-month layoff. And he was 5th, never really competed for the win, but that to me was like, okay, at some point they're going to win this race. Like, you don't come over here with T.O. Password and run that well in the face of everything else looking like you're not, and not get it done at some point. So I don't think that horse is Admire Daytona by any means, but a lot of times I know, UAE Derby is going to produce a winner at some point. I'm not so sure about that, just from a shipping logistics standpoint. But at some point, things will conspire for Japan to send one over at the right time. But all that said, it's not this one.
Yeah, I agree. Possible pace casualty, too. Horse has some speed. Maybe gets a little bit too close to the American Derby pace.
Yeah, I'm going to use him a little bit. I do think he's got some long shot potential. Again, we saw Forever Young come in off the UAE Derby last year. It was a little bit faster last year, but the other thing for me too is like, if you like journalism, you probably want to think about Baeza a little bit, and if you like Luxor Cafe, I want to be 100% out on Admire Daytona, given that they ran together and Luxor Cafe beat them by a nose. So, just some basic logic there off of the coming out of some similar races, but we'll see. Like you said, Ed, they're going to win eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Flying Mohawk. Any takers?
Make music for me in 4th? I don't know.
He's going to be the longest price on the board, and I think from a true separator standpoint, I'd much rather use him underneath than I would. Even Sandman is, the second choice, but horses like Tistastic or Publisher, he needs to improve more than any of the ones I've mentioned, but I do think he'll be the longest shot on the board, and he is going to have pace to run at. So stay out of trouble, and maybe you pick up 4th or 3rd at a huge number. And, I noted every year, 2018, was a chalk trifecta, top 3 choices, top 3 spots, and instilled regard at 80-1, keyed an $18,000 superfecta for $1. So you're much better off getting that separator in there.
I think it was 19
Well, you would know
when I cashed out.
why you're mentioning it. Yeah. So, yeah,
that was
to me, it's worth, like, in my case, again, I like 3 of the top 5 choices, but it costs $6 to play him, box him over Flying Mohawk in a super. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, I agree with the logic from a betting standpoint, but this year we've got so many closers. If you just took all those closers and you ran a race by themselves, what price would this horse be?
It'd be the longest price.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, I would think Publisher and Tistastic and Sandman are just links better than this horse. And
but they're going to be lengths and lengths shorter in price.
Not Publisher. There's a difference between 35-1 and 60. I mean, 65.
I think Publisher is going to be 20-1, and Flying Mohawk might be 80.
How is a maiden going to be 20-1?
Because wise guys.
There's not that many wise guys. He's got to be a 20-1. You've got to be what, the 9th best horse in the
Tony
field.
Callow has not stopped talking about Publisher's work since he's been on the air.
That's fine, but anyway.
This feels like a side bet. You guys got to set an over under and just
there's no way Publisher goes off at 20-1. I'm going to bet on that.
Well, if you want to bet on him going off at 50, I'll take that. I mean, we need to find the median.
A little extreme, but certainly more than 30. But I agree. I mean, Flying Mohawk is going to be what? Is he with the longest shot in the field?
Yes.
Okay. Or just about. Anyway, yeah, he could be a nice turf horse, but
yeah.
All right.
Grande, interested what you hear. What do you guys have to say about this one?
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, there's things to like. Especially depending on what you think of Rodriguez's trip. Say, oh, easy lead, which I wouldn't. I think Captain Cook's a good horse, and he rebuffed him. But Grande was wide. Ragzin actually did give him a better number than the winner. I'd say that primarily because Rodriguez was able to be on the paint all the way around. But that was a good performance, and in my mind, pretty similar to Pan Street, which in my mind also evokes memories of Mage, who I dismissed. And that was kind of it for me. Like, after getting burned by Justify and then Mage, I'm just not going to worry about these lightly raced horses, or I'm not going to worry about that being the reason I don't play a lightly raced horse. He's moving forward. He's progressed. We've already talked about Curlin out of a Warfront mare, like super classic pedigree. No reason to think he won't keep developing. And he's going to need to a little bit to win this, but at 15 or 20-1, he's sort of in that Burnham Square Luxor Cafe bucket for me. If I'm right about others, he's not going to be the reason I lose.
I actually think this is a horse that might drift in price, because when you think about the pecking order of how these horses are played, I think a lot of people are going to take Rodriguez on the smart angle that maybe he gets away with a lead, or that he had those sort of odd trips out west. But if you don't like Rodriguez, you're probably unlikely to like much of Grande. And so perhaps he drifts a little bit. And I do think there's other more interesting stories on other horses to gamble on. But I thought he ran fine in the Wood. It was kind of a sustained, wide, middle move-ish type effort. He did flatten out a bit late. Maybe that was Rodriguez kicking away after enjoying the front end down on the inside. So he is a progressive sort. And so I definitely think there are things to like here. And I think there's a possibility that his price drifts a little bit. I don't know, for him to win, I think you're asking for a lot of things to happen that seem, the collection of all of those things happening seems a little bit unlikely. But he's not one I'd want to totally dismiss off tickets, and I might even have him soundly in the top 10 ranks for me in the race. I think enough of the horse. We just might wake up on Sunday and say that Wood was garbage, and he and Rodriguez are
Wouldn't be
nowhere.
the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with all that, Travis. I mean, and again, like Tappan Street, he's a little unexposed here, lightly raced. We don't know what his ceiling is, and and Rodriguez got the trip, he didn't. So, I want to do a little bit more replay watching on this horse, but he continued. If he works well, he can continue to develop. I think he can be a player here. So I don't think second or third are out of question. I don't really love him to win.
Yeah. Agree.
All right.
Last and least.
All right. We're doing Built. Is he getting in? He's going?
He's in.
He's in right now if they want to. Yeah.
All right. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say least likely winner. I mean, I thought he made moves in both the Risen Star and Louisiana Derby where it looked like he was going to win and just completely flattened out and was no match for the horses who passed him. And I made this comment in a chat earlier today. I mean, Wayne Catalano, one of the most gregarious. I mean, this guy, if he had a legitimate contender, would be one of the stories of Derby in my mind. Love hearing from Wayne. He has been quiet. Like, why isn't he, soaking up this experience? And, whether it's he feels sheepish about, bringing this horse over, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but just seems like things are kind of off from what you would expect if Catalano had a horse he was excited about. And I don't even mean a favorite, but you lead over a 20 or 30 to 1 you're excited about. And that just doesn't seem to be the case here. So, yeah, least likely winner and not being used in any capacity by me.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that, and you're sort of, when you make comments like this, people are like, whoa, Rich Strike won a few years ago. Well, we've had our Rich Strike in our lifetime, so, like,
well, and I hear that a lot. And I mean, I would not that I by any means like Rich Strike, let alone loved, but like my fair odds on Rich Strike, I think were 80 something to 1. So like he actually was where you would expect. I mean, I didn't play him. He wasn't an overlay, but Bill is someone, I mean, I would say 200 to 1 are fair odds, if not more. Like those horses don't win. Rich Strikes win when you give him a 1 or 2% chance. Same with Mind That Bird, although admittedly I probably would have had him over 100. But I mean, what's the path? Like, he hasn't ever been fast enough. He's been in position to win both these races, the last two, and didn't. But he's also going to be 50 to 1. So, there's no point in harping too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good point. There has to be a path, and Candace is talking about the Super Screener I don't know about love, but definitely said you need to include Rich Strike, and he did have a path. He was one of the best closers in the race, and so sometimes that helps. And there weren't that many closers that year, and when the pace got scorching, it just set up for a deep closer. And, that's one of those where a horse like that wins and you're like, oh, he'll never win again. But that day it worked out for a deep closer.
Yep.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Any parting shots, thoughts?
I mean, we'll see if some of these bail out and Baeza can sneak his way in. He obviously makes the race a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that pans out, because I don't think Render's going, so he would just need a couple of defections to sneak in.
Yeah, I actually think he only needs one, because I don't, at this point, it seems like the 20 you see here are the 20 who are going to enter. And I don't think Neoquist, because one rule they have in Kentucky, you can't enter the Derby and then another race that day. So if they're looking at the American Turf, Pat Day Mile, and they enter the Derby even as an AE, they're taking themselves out of those races. And I would expect that would make Bays a number 21. I think he'll be the first one in with the scratch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
that
call.
would be great. It would make it very interesting. And I guess we should talk about him for a second. I mean, it sounds like you guys like him. I like him.
Yeah,
He ran very well. Yeah, he ran well.
He's the rich man's grande. I mean, he chased home, or he didn't chase home. He was on the lead. Journalism had to chase him down, but I mean, it was a legitimate race.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, good stuff. Thanks for joining us, Travis, and thanks everybody for joining the discussion. And also, if you're looking for more information, don't forget the Kentucky Derby Super Screeners out there at picks.horseracingNation.com. It's an invaluable tool for capping the Derby. And Mike's had a long list of great results. And the most recent ones was we emailed everybody after Forte scratched and said, include Mage in all your wagers, essentially replace him where Forte was, which was a great addition. And truly, people go back to Rich Strike. That was the first AE that had drawn into the Derby ever. And it was kind of the morning of, and it was kind of, everyone didn't know what to think about it, kind of already factored that horse out. And Mike said, no, we have to email everybody, include Rich Strike is a long shot play in your wagers, and we did that. So we've had a few people hit. I don't know how many people had him on top. I used him for that reason, but not on top.
What could have been? Scully used him on top.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, well, a little over a week to go, which should be great, and should be a really great Derby. And let's get Baez in the field.
Love it.
All right,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Travis.
You bet. Enjoy the week. We'll see y'all.
See ya.